The biggest question coming out of spring training today is who is faster, Rafael Devers or Alex Verdugo?
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I am your host, Jake Ignaszewski, and here, as always, with my co-host, NESN's Lauren Willand. But one of the most pressing questions that has Twitter sort of debating all over the place, I think that this is probably going to be a Jeopardy question at some point, is who would win in a race, Alex Verdugo or Rafael Devers? And if you're thinking, Jake, what are you talking about? Go over and watch the video on the Red Sox Instagram and Twitter, because they mic'd up Rafael Devers, and throughout the video, he continuously told Alex Verdugo that he's slow.
It's a fun clip. And this is the kind of stuff that, even though it's spring training, you love to see. It's just everyone is there. They're having a good time. They're happy. You know, their baseball season is about to begin. Some are going off to the WBC very soon. But it's something that's so silly, but it's just so pure at the same time. And my money is on Alex Verdugo. No offense to Devers, but I think Verdugo could leg him out.
And sort of how this all happened was they were doing, some agility drills, some jogging drills, and Devers just continuously told Verdugo, "You're slow. I could definitely beat you in a race." And then, Kike had to say, "The only reason you're running, Rafi, is because Yoshida's here." And it's cool to see, the chemistry already building, the vibes already immaculate this early in spring training, and that's just what you want to see, especially after a tough season to really be happy about last year. It's good coming into this year, some excitement and some good vibes starting out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you said, it's really good to see. And there's a lot of newcomers. There's a lot of faces that have been here for a few years. And there's, like I said, a ton of new guys that are trying to fit in. And you have Kike and Devers and Verdugo just kind of having their own friendly battle. You have Yoshida just being like, okay, cool, like just there for the vibes. And it's just a lot of fun. And I know it's it's day 2, day 3 of spring training, and but it's good to see after such a crappy 2022 and such an offseason that still left the Red Sox with a lot of questions that they don't really seem to be, at least on the outside, they don't seem to be like worried about the offseason and what happened in 2022. They are ready to put the offseason and 2022 in the rearview mirror and just use the offseason signings as motivation to try and be better in 2023. And Chaim Bloom promised Kike Hernandez. So come hell or high water, Kike will make sure this team is better than 2022. And listen, Chaim Bloom didn't say how much better. So if they win one more game, technically he kept his promise. But it is good to see that people are just, they look happy, they're excited. And being in Florida and that sunshine, the warm weather, it's probably pretty nice down there too. But being around these guys that you're around 9 months or so out of the year and you're away from them for 3 months probably feels like an eternity. So they're probably just excited to be back in each other's presence as well.
And we've heard, throughout this week, Boston radio sort of echoing the fact that fans have a disinterest in the Red Sox right now. There's lower attendance than we've usually seen in spring training, but all the videos and pictures that I've seen is people are really enjoying it down in Fort Myers. The players have a whole different energy. We're starting to see this group really start to mold together only on day 2. And so I'm just excited for when games actually happen, not to say that the full squad will be there with a lot of players attending the WBC, but being able to see, the team start to mold together, start to materialize, and we start to sort of guess and, as we've spoken about, overanalyze what this team could look like on opening day.
Yeah, I mean, the first game's Friday, and we're not going to have a clue if any of these guys on Friday's roster will be part of the opening day roster. This is the fun part about the earlier games. You see the kind of the prospects, the people that could play a role down the line for the Red Sox, that could be their player to watch out for in Worcester. So it's a lot of fun in the early goings, but I'm excited to watch some preseason baseball. I know that these games don't count, but it's still nice to see it's going to be nice to see baseball on our TVs after a long hiatus. The offseason is the same every year, but it seemed like a lot longer this year, probably because of how the season ended and how the offseason unfolded. But it'll be nice to get a look at the younger guys and maybe some guys we haven't heard of yet, and maybe even some of the new guys and some people who are fighting for spots on that 40-man roster. So I'm excited just to see what these guys look like, and just to have, like I said, baseball on the TV again. That's when you know spring is coming. And especially with this wintry mixy storm thing coming Thursday, I'm going to want to see sunshine and baseball by Friday.
Exactly. The crack of the bat, the sound when the ball hits the mitt, just being able to have, that atmosphere back with Red Sox baseball. And, some notes that Jen McCaffrey spoke about on Monday during spring training. She said, as for most pitchers, once they start games, it won't be a strict 2, 3, 4, 5 inning progression as much as the team will monitor the numbers of pitches thrown / stress each inning to monitor their health. And one thing that I was interested in with what Alex Cora spoke about 2 days ago was that a lot of the non-roster invitees will primarily be starting these games and playing these games to start off early on. And then Corey Kluber will get the first start in terms of guys in the rotation. But one thing that, they really touched on a lot during winter weekend is how they sort of assessed how they were going about these injuries, being able to build guys up, managing the pitchers' workload, especially pitchers, and how they can avoid not allowing guys to get injured so much going into 2023. And it's nice to see, specifically with what we've heard early on out of spring training, is that they're doing exactly that in terms of trying to get guys prepared as quickly as possible and also as healthy as possible.
I mean, that's the thing. We saw so much injury last year to players, to key players, and injuries that you think probably could have been avoided. So now they're going into the season already tackling it, being like, how do we keep people healthy? And injuries are going to happen. Muscles are going to be pulled and bones are going to get broken. There's things that just cannot be avoided. And when you just go into the season with the mindset of, maybe a better routine or the way you prepare for a game or something just to try to keep these guys healthier, that's going to be key. That's a huge question going into the season, is how healthy will the Red Sox be? I mean, they're already going down into the season down Trevor Story. So you don't want something like that to, come up where it's like, oh, well, it feels like they've known about something with his elbow or his arm, and you feel like the surgery could have been had sooner, or maybe the surgery could have been avoided or at least put off for another year. But you don't want that to happen to any of these other guys on the roster. So health is huge. And I know they have a good training staff with the Red Sox. So hopefully they've been, maybe tweaking some things for the players, and hopefully it works. I want to see a healthy Red Sox team. I mean, you look at Verdugo, who dealt with injuries last year, of course, Kike and his hematoma. And you think that if they didn't have the worst, I mean, they had bad seasons in terms of what they wanted from themselves. But if you think that they can be 100% healthy or as close to it as possible, they could be difference makers in this lineup.
And a few guys who ended up dealing with injuries throughout the season are starting to have some positive news. Spoke about them early on in spring training. Chris Sale specifically has only pitched 12 games in the last 3 seasons. He will likely throw 2 live BPs before game action, according to Jen McCaffrey. And then in terms of Garrett Whitlock, he's been throwing bullpens and his arm is looking strong, but he's being brought along slowly in fielding drills. And Dave Bush sort of alluded to that the full fielding drills are the last thing that he'll ultimately do. But it's nice to see that, specifically not only with Sale, just progressing him to continue to build up and be careful with his arm and just his overall body before they just throw him into game action. And then with Whitlock as well, just making sure that they heal up that hip to the fullest and are able to help work him up fully to be a starter in the rotation this year.
Especially Whitlock, like you said, he's going to be a starter this year, and they need to make sure that they do everything the right way, because he has not started. Well, he has started, but he has not been, he hasn't had the full off season as a starter, the full spring training to be brought up as a starter, and he's got that now. So do it the right way, do it slowly, and just make sure that he's as healthy as possible before toting him out there. And then all of a sudden he gets injured. His hip is bothering him again, or anything in between. But we know that I want Whitlock in the bullpen, but I'm excited to see what he can do as a starter. So especially with the full spring training, being in that routine as a starter. So I wanted to go slow. There's no need to rush him, especially with the depth that they have going into the 2023 season. He's obviously going to be ready for opening day, but there's no reason to rush him through spring training or anything like that, because you don't want to risk injury in spring training where he's not ready for opening day, or you don't want to risk injury early in the season and then he's shut down for 3 or 4 months.
And we had one person over on YouTube. He sort of agreed with you, saying that when we were talking about the Houck and Whitlock conversation, and there's always going to be those people, but he said, in my opinion, I would like to see Whitlock more in the bullpen, Houck as a starter. This is going to continuously be a debate throughout the season, especially with, we spoke about it our 2 episodes ago, being able to have those defined roles. Once those defined roles are sort of announced, then fans will have a little bit more clarity on what they can look forward to going into the season, rather than overanalyzing and sort of guessing what we might see. And, one position that, we've spoken about a little bit is the catching position. Reese McGuire as well as Connor Wong are looked at as probably the primary platoon players at that position. But then Jorge Alfaro is another guy that the Red Sox signed on a minor league contract. And it was cool to hear him, sort of speak about how he watched the Red Sox versus the Yankees growing up. There wasn't too many games that he could watch on TV during his childhood, but he said that, he would watch guys as a little kid like Manny Ramirez, Big Papi, Pedro Martinez, Jason Varitek. And it was really neat to see that, after his first one-on-one drills with Jason Varitek working on his defense, he said it was a dream come true.
Yeah, and when when anyone's working with Jason Varitek, it's you're going to get the most out of it, and he's going to push the players he's working with and get the most out of them. So it's always good to see him work with people, especially Alfaro, where I feel like he has a lot to prove, and there's a lot. This is a big spring training for him because that catching position is just so up in the air. I mean, Connor Wong, there's a lot of hype around him. We've seen the flashes of it. And then there's Reese McGuire, which I think we know what we're going to get from him. But, is Connor Wong the answer at catcher? Is it going to be Connor Wong and Reese McGuire? Or is it going to be Jorge Alfaro? I like what he's brought just energy-wise. I think he's going to be really good throughout spring training. And it's really funny to listen to him when he talks that he watched Varitek growing up and Ramirez and all those. I'm like, oh yeah, like these guys are, my age. Like they watch the same guys that I watched growing up. And it's when you get to work with someone, like a dream come true, when you get to work with your childhood hero, it's probably just makes them all the more motivated. And like I said, working with Varitek, it's a good thing when he's investing in you and helping you, and you're going to get a lot out of him. He was caught 4 no-hitters. He called a great game. And I don't know how that man's knees are alive. Or any catcher's knees for that matter. That is a tough position to play. But I think that he's definitely going to be somebody to watch in spring training. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that catching position, because this is a veteran guy. So will it be easier to just kind of send Connor Wong to Providence, to Worcester, and to get him his reps down there and just build him up until he's 100% Major League Baseball ready?
And, with Alfaro, he's a guy who coming into this, all we spoke about was the vibes, not too great, offensively, other than, the power, and had a little bit of an inability to be able to get on base consistently. And then, the defense is also a drawback as well. But he's coming off of a defense or Dominican Winter League MVP, ended up helping his team ultimately win the championship. And, you brought up the mindset. And I think that's one thing, especially looking into his quotes, you can really sort of see the motivation to get better day in and day out. He sort of said, when speaking about working with Varitek, he said, "I'll never say no to anything about catching. Whatever can help me get better, I will always put the work in to do that." And, he's struggled over the last few years with pass balls, and, Varitek and manager Alex Cora said that they're hoping to make a few tweaks to be able to fix those issues. And Alfaro also mentioned as well that he's trying to get back to the catching on one knee. And he said that he really wants to work on that to get to as comfortable as possible ahead of the season.
Yeah, and that's a tough stance there, to be able to play on one knee and to just move the way that catchers do, and be able to be ready at the drop of a hat, be ready to throw down to second, first, third, be able to pop right up. But again, working with Varitek, he's going to figure out all these things. He's going to learn a lot. Even if he does go to Worcester to start the season, he's going to bring a ton of knowledge with him. And then he can pass that on to the youngsters in AAA. So I think it's a win-win, regardless of where he ends up on this roster. And he's such an interesting case because, like you said, the Dominican League was just, that was his league, and he was just a monster through that league. And you look over at his MLB stats and you're like, just why can't that translate? Or will that translate, this year? Is this year that he finally kind of breaks out, even though he's not 23, 24 years old anymore? So it's very interesting. I've always been very interested in this acquisition by the Red Sox, and now that we're finally getting to get our first look at these guys, I'm excited to see what kind of spring training he has and if this makes it difficult for Alex Cora.
Right, and speaking about the one knee, all I think about is Jared Saltalamacchia. I remember when he first did that, I was like, I had never seen anything in my life watching baseball, and I was sort of caught off guard. But it's interesting that that's becoming more of a accepted sort of stance in a one that guys are starting to work on or switch over to. And I think as well with what we've heard early on, he's just brought some great energy and a good mindset. And I think that's going to be perfect because, even if he does go down to Worcester, he has until June 2nd to where he can opt out of his deal. And so I think that's a perfect month or two to where you're able to give Connor Wong the ability to show what he fully has. And then, if you want to, move Wong down, you add Alfaro to the 40-man roster and you give Alfaro an opportunity. And so, being able to have that flexibility where you are able to see not only what Wong has, but also be able to have that backup in Alfaro, who's proven is able to bring great energy to the clubhouse and also could continue to work on things down in AAA if that is the ultimate case. But I think that there's going to be a lot of different guys who could be on the fringe of this roster and could have in the Red Sox mindset a lot more to work on until they're fully MLB ready. And one of those guys is Jarren Duran. And, we're going to speak more about his mindset going into the season in our second segment. But before we do that, I just want to talk to you about FanDuel. So at the midway point of the NBA season is here. And now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. We're seeing the Celtics continuously opening the eyes of not only Boston fans, but also overall NBA fans. You've brought it up a few times. The Bruins are on absolute scorcher right now. So you can bet on both of those teams over on FanDuel. Plus, they allow you to combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same game parlay. And so who knows? You could say Bruins money line and David Pastrnak goal. That's a perfect parlay to ultimately try and win some big money. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet to up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So Jarren Duran is a name that we've brought up multiple times on this podcast, some positive, some negative. And he's somebody as well that has a lot to prove going into this season, who, throughout the year, not only had mental struggles, had, on-field struggles, and also just the overall struggles of being able to live up to the expectations that were placed on him, especially in 2021 when he was looked at as probably the most exciting prospect coming up through the Red Sox system. And it was interesting to sort of hear his mindset going into the season, speaking with Boston Globe's Julian McWilliams, and sort of alluded to his mindset is, I'm just trying to be in the moment and see where I'm at. And he's somebody as well who's going to be playing for in the WBC representing Mexico with Alex Verdugo. And Verdugo is somebody as well that, we've spoken about in the past as somebody who could be a great mentor for Duran to not only be able to have the same mindset, the looseness in his play, but also learn how to be an ultimate professional in the major leagues.
Yeah, we've talked about big spring trainings for other people. This is one for Duran too. He has a lot to prove, and hopefully he's matured and grown up since last season and is not being accountable for the play against the Blue Jays, which was Raimel Tapia. Oddly enough, that's the person he's going to be probably competing against for that 40-man roster spot. And then with the Kansas City Royals and their fans. So hopefully, I just hope he's learned from it. And it's really hard to think positive about it right now, just because we haven't seen much from him. And yes, he talked about wanting to minimize his bigger mistakes, and he's ready to just put the past behind him. And I hope that's true. I hope that he can leave that kind of pompous attitude behind and just focus on being a solid Major League Baseball player for the Boston Red Sox. So it's funny that, Alex Verdugo was the voice of reason for Duran during the Kansas City thing, and, getting him away from the fans and trying to calm him down. And hopefully that just being around him for spring training and then going to the WBC with Mexico, hopefully they can just kind of have honest conversations about what they expect from, or what the Red Sox expect from Duran. And Cora said it. He's like, you don't just become a bad player over the course of 2 years. And last year when he got sent down to AAA, it was more of a demotion than it was, but they did want him to work on his defense. And I think it's hard to try to work on your defense, your offense, and try to be an all-around solid player when you have so much on your mind. And he opened up about his mental health as well. So, hopefully he's just on the right track. I mean, we've been very down on Jarren Duran on this podcast, and my mind isn't changed just because he said he wants to do better. Like, that's great. I'm glad that you want to now do it. And I hope that he has, good people around him to try to make him better. I think Alex Verdugo certainly will be one of those people, but this is a big like proving point and a big turning point for Duran, because there was so much hype around him. And at one point we're like, cool, he's just fast now. All he brings is speed, and that's not what he's here for. He's here because he was supposed to be this big prospect. And this is also, I mean, this could be a case of sometimes top prospects just don't live up to their hype. But I think we can't say that yet, but he really needs to turn it around this season. And I hope he does, because I want to see the player he can be, but not if he hasn't changed his attitude at all or anything like that, and hold himself accountable.
And, Cora also said that, they've been in contact with him throughout the offseason, that he's in a good place. And, they hope when he goes to spring training, he's ready to rock. And, we spoke about Verdugo being a mentor for him. And, just thinking about it, they've had very similar, sort of experiences in the majors thus far, and also in just their overall baseball career. Verdugo was a prospect with the LA Dodgers, obviously came over in the Mookie Betts deal, had tons of pressure on him to perform immediately. Duran, top prospect, had the same expectations to perform immediately in the majors. Both players have had struggles defensively in the major league level. Both players have had those ups and downs, haven't been able to, live up to those expectations that Red Sox fans and, the media sort of put on them. And so maybe Verdugo hasn't been as negatively outspoken about different things as Duran has, but, they're both in very similar spots. And, especially with being together for the WBC, being able to bond a little bit more than maybe they already have, and have them be their right-hand man when they are having that whole experience. I think that, it's going to be interesting to see how, Duran really is able to, learn from his mistakes. And if he does go down to Worcester, how he's able to carry himself. Is he going to, be able to be the player that he was at the end of last year? We saw a very different Jarren Duran. He seemed to play a lot looser, have a lot more fun. But, the big question is, he's done that time and time again in Worcester. And can he be able to do that in the major league level? I hope so. And, it's nice to hear that, the overall organization has really done a great job of, being there for him, just in terms of throughout the offseason. You're not alone. We're here for you, not only to help you get better physically, but also mentally as well. And just making sure that, even though he hasn't fully lived up to those expectations, that they're going to give him a shot. And, Cora also mentioned, his role might be diminished a little bit from, other guys that they brought in. You brought up Tapia as well. And so we'll see how they really sort of figure out which guys they want on their bench, which guys they want to go down to Worcester. And, one thing that I also want to mention too about Tapia, I don't know if you saw this video at all, but Devers and Tapia seem to be like best friends. Like they had this interesting banter back and forth. And I saw that and I was like, the friendship we didn't know that we needed.
It's the stuff that I just love to see when you see the newcomers come in and just kind of already mesh with Rafael Devers isn't old by any means, but the older guys and the veterans on the team, and, the people who have been on the team and in MLB for a while. And I mean, he's not a rookie either, but it's fun to see those kind of relationships form so quickly under new teams. And it gives like some sort of a little bit of hope and positivity that, okay, at least they're getting along. At least right now, this early in spring training, it doesn't look like the chemistry is going to be an issue in 2023. So, it's that's a lot of fun to see. And then going back to Duran, I mean, he's old enough now to realize that this is on him now. The Red Sox, I feel like, have done everything they can, and now it's a matter of, if he is going to be a bench player for the Red Sox, is he going to be okay with that? Would he rather go somewhere else, get full-time reps? Would he rather just be in Worcester? I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to be a career AAA guy, but when you get the playing time, you can't, beggars can't be choosers. But he's one of the big, I mean, there's tons of storylines, but he's one of the bigger ones, just player wise and individual wise, because he needs to have a good spring training. Otherwise, he'll probably be in Worcester until he gets traded.
I agree, and I'm also sort of curious if we could see him be a Rule 5 sort of situation. Obviously, he's already had that major league experience, so I don't know if that's the case. But just in terms of his age, and we saw Thad Ward, who was the number 1 pick in the Rule 5 draft, could ultimately be in the rotation for the Nationals. So when guys do get that opportunity with some of these teams who don't have those log jams in terms of their specific position, we see these guys have a lot more of an opportunity. And so who knows if, a change of scenery for Duran is the best thing for his career. But I agree with you. This is going to be a very critical season for him to be able to show not only the front office, but just fans in general that, he's here to stay and that he's a player to still be excited about. And, it sort of not made me feel bad, but it was interesting to watch. There was a video with Christian Arroyo, and they had him mic'd up, and Duran was walking right next to him. And, Arroyo was trying to get him in the video and like get him involved. And you could see Duran, he was answering the questions, but he felt very comfortable like on camera. And I still feel like, one thing that he mentioned is that, the opinions of other people like still creep in. And that's one thing that the mental side, he just needs to get over that aspect. As a major league professional baseball player, you can't allow the opinions of thousands of other people dictate sort of how you live your life, not only on the field, but also off the field. And so I hope he's able to be more his authentic self and be able to show that swagger and personality that we saw throughout Worcester, joke around with his teammates and, not feel like he needs to be super tense and angry and be perfect up in the major leagues.
Yeah, and every baseball player is going to have some sort of hater. Mike Trout has haters. Every player out there no one's going to be universally liked. And I think that's something that, I mean, it's easy for me to say that's something that he needs to get over, but it is something that's not going to be easy, especially if you take opinions of other players hard or other people very hard. But, this is it's a job that you're in the spotlight on 24/7. You're being watched, and especially now with all the the stuff that happened last year, and then even in Worcester as well, he's, like we've mentioned, he has a lot to prove. I hope he can get over any sort of mental roadblock he's in as well. I hope he's talking to good people, but I hope that, like you said, he can show kind of that the authentic self, and maybe Christian Arroyo can be someone who's going to bring that out of him. He's a goofy dude, and hopefully that rubs off on Duran, because the last thing I want to see is like some like fun teammate thing and he's just being like like, no, that's going to bring down any kind of mood and any kind of good mood. Like, you want your players to be excited, and you want the team that you root for to want to at least look like they want to be there.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. And, looking at the poll that I put up on Twitter in terms of the race thing that we spoke about earlier in the episode, right now we got 25 votes. Alex Verdugo's winning 60%. Devers has 20%. And one thing I put in there that, maybe I shouldn't have, I also put a tie, so if people wanted to cop out, like now that I'm thinking about it, it's an easy cop out, but 20 people said a tie, but it could be a tie. Who knows?
It could be.
But I really hope that the Red Sox media and social team like really runs with this, and they actually have Verdugo and Devers do a race. Obviously, hopefully nothing ends up happening, knock on wood, in terms of an injury. But I think that'd be great content, especially if you mic'd both of them up and you just heard them talking crap back and forth to each other.
They need to do it now. I mean, this is I heard a friendly bet there, and people saying that, oh, I'm faster than you. No, you're faster. I see a fun race in the future. Let's make sure we're all stretched out and ready to go. And, this isn't going to cause some hamstring pull or anything, but, maybe just like, quick 5 feet. No, that's not enough. I don't know, the 50 feet. Or maybe that's too much. I don't know. I'm not good with measurements like that. But a quick sprint, see who's faster, and put the silliness to rest, because I think Verdugo is faster, and I just want to be right about it.
And I'm not trying to hear, and you can take this with a grain of salt, but with sort of what Alex Verdugo's brother said with him, dealing with injuries throughout the season. I'm not trying to hear that, this like little race thing is the reason why he hit 250 throughout the
Right,
season.
no,
And we hear it in like
exactly.
8 to 9 months, and it's like we should have never done that. But I hope it's something that they actually end up doing. And I'm excited for more of these fun little storylines that continue to come out of spring training. It's just small things that as a Red Sox fan who's just yearning for winning and good news and positive vibes, it was really nice to see that today. But we're going to continue to bring the positive vibes throughout spring training leading up to opening day for the Red Sox. We're posting 5 days a week. We're back, baby. And so make sure to subscribe on YouTube or whatever audio platform that you listen to stay updated about everything that's happening with your favorite team and stay knowledgeable heading into the new season. Also, make sure to follow us over on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox. We post a lot of different things that's going on around the Red Sox spring training, different topics that we might bring up on the podcast. One thing that we like to do is get your guys' opinions and put them in the episodes. We want to make this the most fan engaging Red Sox podcast out there. And so make sure to follow us over there. Also follow myself on Twitter. It's at Jake Iggy, and also Lauren. It's 3 laws, Lauren with 4 R's. But we greatly appreciate everybody making Locked On Red Sox their first listen of every single day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. But we hope everybody has a great rest of their day. And we'll end it how we always end it. Let's go Sox. And I forgot, also, keep the faith. Peace.